welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard, and I will be your host for today or tomorrow or a year from now, probably even a year ago as well, because after all, it's your podcast. Now, joining me today, he likes a bit of a challenge in his life. He doesn't like to play it safe. You could often even be said to say he likes a little bit of adversity in his life. It's the one, it's the only, the man who has a Kickstarter on the go just now. So this is a quick start on a Kickstart. I give you the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic Mr. Joseph Norris. So hello, Mr. Norris.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.
Are you well, sir?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks.
Good.
How are you?
I'm a good 9. I'm a 9.4 today on the Richter scale of life, which is a bit, It's a bit shaky, but you know, we're getting there. We're trying to pack at the moment, Joseph. It's one of these things. We sold the house and we're just trying to get everything kind of organised and up and running, which means I finally have to face how many board games I actually have, which is quite a scary thing. But you are here to have a chat about your Kickstarter project, which is called Nightlancer.
That's right, yeah, Nightlancer.
Cool. But before we jump into that, I guess we better say hello to everybody out there and say thank you for joining us. The reason why we do this is, you know, there's just not enough podcasts out there about board games. There's us, there's a couple of Scottish fellows now, there's Unlucky Frog, there's Giant Brain, there's us, there's other people out there, but there's mainly us. And the other reason that we do this is because, pretty much Joseph got in contact with us, said he was running his Kickstarter, and I'm nosy. So if somebody says they want to come on the show and talk about stuff, then I say yes and try and fit them in. So that's why he's on. So thank you very much for coming on, Joseph. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show, and I hope I can satisfy your curiosity.
You don't know which questions I'm going to ask yet, mate.
We'll see.
You better buckle down. It's fine. What we do like to do is we like to find out a little bit about the history, like how you got into the hobby and stuff like that.
Sure.
So do you want to tell us, you know, as I say, we're going to have a... let's have a kind of a little bit of a check back in the past. Let's have a little bit of a focus on the daytime of the present before we jump off into the Nightlancer of the future. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the hobby?
What, all the way back to the beginning?
As far back as you want. You know, if you were born in a board game shop, then that is fine with me. If you cut your teeth on cardboard, if you crawled amongst the meeples, you know, if you were weaned on dice, then whatever tickles your fancy, sir.
I can't really go back as far as I'd like because I can't remember that young. I think I was I was definitely gaming when I was 8. Because my dad's a pretty big gamer and he got me into it very young.
All right.
And so that was playing, like, to begin with, I think the first kind of real, as in not, you know, traditional family game type board game I played was Heroquest. And got into role-playing games shortly after that.
Have you still got Heroquest? Do you still have a copy of it?
I don't have it myself. That would be my dad's.
All right, okay. Do you still get a chance to actually have a look at it? Do you see what it is? Do you ever kind of get a chance to play it again with your dad?
I've had a look at it occasionally, but now I look back at it and it's I can't really say I see any appeal to play it anymore because I've moved on into other games now.
I'll let you correct that statement. I'm sure you've seen the video on YouTube. There's certainly the best things about Heroquest is the ability to go back and play it again. So,
right.
was it doesn't appeal to you apart from the roll to move, the incredibly high difficulty level, and the monotony of the levels? Is there anything else you don't like about it?
I mean, the roll to move thing is a big factor. It's a very I don't know. I mean, I haven't actually played it for a very long time, or even looked at it for a few years. But I remember it being kind of very random. And you say roll to move is just one of the many random elements. Outside that, yeah, pretty much everything is kind of hit or miss. And it's not a type of gameplay I like. Really, I like when there's risk in a game. I like it to be kind of risk you can control.
Right.
So if you want to take a risk, it's up to you as the player to choose. I'm going to take this risk. But there's also going to be kind of a safe option. You can try to play it safe, maybe for a lower reward, rather than just you have to risk everything all the time, every time, which denies the player control of the situation. They don't actually have control over what they're doing, if that's the case.
Did your dad beat you a lot then at Heroquest? Is that why you don't like it? Was he? Or who was the dungeon master?
I think he was. I don't actually. Yeah, I think he was running it more like a GM running a role-playing game.
Oh, right, okay.
So it was kind of like, ultimately he wanted us to win, but he wanted to give us a fight doing it.
Did you get to the end of the level when you beat him and say, okay, let me tell you what you did wrong and how you could have beaten me quicker?
I don't remember anything like that, no. But we, after kind of playing, I think, a couple of the pre-written scenarios, we started going into his homemade scenarios. Right. I think that was what led into us doing role-playing games and playing kind of Dungeons and Dragons, Middle-earth role-playing, Traveller, a bunch of others.
Did you have like a favourite go-to character when you're role-playing? I mean, are you dwarf or are you barbarian, a rogue, thief?
For a long time, I was always kind of trying to try everything out and not really make a decision on that. But more so in recent years, I've actually been kind of thinking more seriously about what do I actually enjoy role-playing, rather than just trying different stuff out for the sake of it. And when it comes down to it, I like the kind of more upfront, like roguish fighter type.
Oh, right, okay.
So I like being on the front line and getting into the action, but I also like having a few tricks up my sleeve.
So a couple of knives in the back pocket, a winning smile.
Yeah.
You know?
Something like that, yeah.
Good.
Just to make it a little bit more interesting, give me some options when fighting doesn't look like it's a good idea.
Kind of a high kind of a good persuasion kind of thing going on, which is always good. Did you stay, I mean, have you always stayed within the role-playing games, or have you kind of jumped into other things as well?
Well, I started out, I was moving on to a lot of other board games around that time. I also started wargaming around 12, I think it was. I was 12 when I first started wargaming, maybe a little bit earlier. But yeah, I started out with, I can't even remember the name of the game, but it was like a World War II miniatures game. Yeah. That was my first one. That wasn't very interesting, so I moved on to Warhammer 40,000 after that.
Did you have a decent collection?
I still have.
Do you?
Decent. What do you mean by decent? Like, how big is decent?
That's what I mean. It's a measurement, isn't it? It's like people talking like, you know, are they talking in thousands of miniatures or hundreds of miniatures? Because I would say a decent collection is enough to field at least maybe about 2 or 3 armies would be decent, different choices.
Right.
How many miniatures you got, Joseph?
I've never actually done a head count, but so I worked it out. Well, no, really. I have done a points count.
Okay.
The last time I checked, a few years ago, I think my points value for my Chaos, 40k Chaos army was 10,000.
So how many figures have you got, Joseph?
I would have to estimate like 300-400 for my Chaos army.
That's not bad.
Then there's my Space Orcs and my my Ultramarines. I've also got Warhammer armies. I've got my Dark Elf army. I've got my Orcs and Goblins army and my Dwarfs army. They're all relatively small. They're like 100 or 200 models each.
So, a couple of thousand.
Yeah, when you count in my BattleTech miniatures and my Star Grunt and Dirtside miniatures as well.
So good.
Yeah.
Like I said, decent. So folk would walk in and go, "That's decent, Joseph."
There's also my role-playing game miniatures that I painted up just for fantasy games and sci-fi, like cyberpunky role-playing games as well.
So how much of your stuff's painted? I mean, are you a guy that you'll?
Oh no, this is my painted stuff. Sorry, no, my unpainted stuff I can't. I have no idea.
Oh, this is brilliant. So how big's your collection? Well, I've got a couple hundred of these. Oh, then I've got a couple hundred of these. And then I've got 1,000 of these. I've got 10,000 points worth here. And then what about the painted stuff? I've got unpainted stuff as well.
I didn't mention my tanks.
I just...
I must have about 20 tanks in my Chaos
Marines army. Kind of unravels. This is when it all unravels. Do you know what I mean? This is when it's all kind of... This is when the truth will out. Because I just had to say, it's a couple of 100,000. Decent. It's approaching indecent, Joseph. How many... how many unpainted then? Are we getting into thousands of unpainted?
I seriously have never tried to count that. There's this box I use to move into my current home, and one of the boxes I moved my rest of my possessions here with, and that has all the boxes of miniatures I haven't painted in. It's a pretty big box. I would guess another few hundred models in there.
Oh dear. So, okay, when you're doing your work here, I'm really glad you came on. I'm still not going to talk about your game yet, Joseph. We're going to get to the bottom of this, right?
That's fine.
Okay. How do you decide when you paint? Do you only paint?
Sorry?
How do you decide when you paint up something? Is it because you're using an active army? Or...
Nah, because I wanted to paint them.
So you don't kind of make a decision and say, okay, this one I'm going to paint, this one I'm not going to paint. You just kind of like whatever you're using at the time.
I see a squad I want to paint and I paint it. I mean, it's not even relevant to what I'm playing with. I haven't actually been an active war game. I mean, I haven't painted many miniatures for a while. I've kind of been focused on other things, like Nightlancer.
I heard.
So I got... This all got set aside a few years ago.
Right,
to kind of focus more. But yeah, I actually spent more time painting miniatures than actually playing with them. So the priority, it's not really anything to do with kind of playing the game. I mean, I've got so many miniatures, I never have to worry about being able to field a solid army that can handle pretty much any opposition.
So, you're like the Jeff Bezos of miniatures then. You've actually got so many miniatures. If you dropped a miniature in the street, it would actually cost you more in miniatures to stop and pick it up than actually just leave it on the ground.
That wouldn't... Yeah, that might be about right.
So do you just pick them to paint them if you like the look of them? I mean, so do you have armies that you field that you haven't painted, or all the armies that you field, are they painted?
I think I have fielded all of the armies. Whether I fielded every single miniature, no.
Right.
I haven't used every single model yet. There's a few kind of squads that I haven't actually played a war game since I finished them.
That's not bad. I mean,
and some that just...
I mean, let's face it. I would demand to see somebody who has got stuff in their collection that they haven't used or they haven't played, or in some cases haven't kind of unwrapped. This is a fact. I saw a thing today that said there's two sides to the board gaming tabletop hobby. There are those that play games and those that collect games, which is now two separate sides, because I know of people that have got lots of games and I've played 5 of them, and I know also people that have got, like, they go, I've got 800 games. How many have you played? Some. And then you get somebody else, how many games have you got? I've only got 25 games. Casual. And then they're like, I've played them all, like 5-10 times, and it's like, I'm actually getting the value at my games, kind of thing, which is always kind of good fun. So if you continually stayed in the kind of Warhammer tabletop-y type space, as opposed to jumping into the friendly cardboard stuff, or have you kind of combined the two?
Oh, I've got my my board game selection as well.
Okay.
And my role-playing game selection.
Is Is it
if you want to get into that too.
Is it a decent number of board games, Joseph?
I would say I've got about 40 board games.
So you are casual then. That's...
Collect. I'm not a board game collector.
No.
I've played every single one of them at least once.
That's pretty good then. That's pretty good. Have you? I mean, do you try and stay up with the kind of the latest stuff then, or are you quite selective about what you kind of get in terms of the board game stuff?
I'm pretty selective. Yeah, a lot of what I get is kind of looking at stuff that, because I've been really focused on the Nightlancer world for the last few years.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for something that maybe gives me a different perspective on cyberpunk worlds or dystopian worlds, or even just like games with head-to-head conflict in them. So if I see something like that on Kickstart or even just in a shop, I'll get it.
Okay.
Outside of that, I only get something if it really grabs me.
Okay. What's the last thing you kind of bought?
The last thing I bought was actually a war game.
Okay.
called Open Combat. I picked it up at the UK Games Expo.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if I've got it around here somewhere. I'm sure I do. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's by a guy that actually worked on Necromunda, and he really
right, okay.
I mean, really knows the stuff.
Yeah.
It's got some really cool stuff in it. It's website secondthunder.com. There you go. They get a free plug.
That's fine. I'll edit that out.
Okay, sure.
I'm joking. Of course, I'm gonna keep. I'll probably ask. I'll probably say, "Oh, who's that? Okay, and who's it you know from there?" And I'll be annoyingly emailing them, asking them if they want to come on the show and get dogs abuse as well. Do you go into, if you're making a decision on buying stuff? Do you do a lot of research, or do you do like an impulse kind of buy? Because obviously you've got a reasonable collection. Are you the type of person that kind of sits down and says, "Oh, I'll look at reviews," or or are you quite kind of I like the look of this, so I'm just going to go and jump it? I mean, what was the buying decision behind the game you picked up at the expo?
Well, Open Combat, that was because I talked to the designer about the gameplay, and he talked about some features in it that really impressed me.
Yeah.
And I've played a lot of war games, and there's always kind of a few things that seemed lacking. And he had, well, not lacking, it's just the solution they had maybe wasn't the best. And I think Open Combat has some solutions to kind of certain issues in a war game that are really kind of beautiful and organic, and the result kind of organically fits to the way the core mechanics work. Like, basically, you don't need any real special rules to handle kind of massively outnumbering your opponent or backing them to a corner or anything like that.
Oh, right, okay.
Because the basic gameplay, the basic kind of combat resolution, has built-in mechanics that automatically kind of fit perfectly in with kind of massing on one opponent or outnumbering them or cornering them. Because the hand-to-hand combat has this kind of pushback mechanic, where if you roll a certain result on your attack die, you don't cause an injury, but you push your opponent back. And if there's an obstacle behind them, like another enemy or a wall, they can't get pushed back because I think they get injured instead. So, in a man-on-man fight, they're just going to be moving back and forth across the battlefield in a way that's very kind of theatrical.
Yeah.
But if they actually get surrounded, if you've got one guy surrounded on all sides, he's just going to get pounded into the ground. Because he can't back up, he can't move back. There's another guy right behind him with another sword.
No, I mean, it sounds like something that is that's pretty cool. Because I think one of the things, there's nothing worse than you going face to face with somebody in like a combat situation, and then you smack them for 6, and they're just still standing there, not doing anything, and it's just like, okay, and then they're still in range, so that when they hit you back, they're kind of hitting you back at their almost like their full force. So you can end up like getting damaged. You're like knocking them back, putting them to one side, and there's no kind of effect apart from maybe damaging them a bit. So that sounds pretty cool, actually.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Are you going to kind of get it to the table as quickly as you can then, or what's the plan?
I will. I'm hoping to get it to the table in the next couple of months.
Yeah. Okay. Because obviously you've got certain other things.
I do. Yeah.
You might...
That thing to not be named, is it?
You notice how I gloss over it every single time you try to bring it up in the conversation. Welcome to We're Not Wizards, where we actually don't talk about the game that you've come on the show to talk about until it's far too late and everybody's dizzy. Is this the first game you've designed?
No. I've been playing around designing games since I think 14 was the first one I made. Mm-hmm. I was playing this game called Aliens, which is based on the Aliens movie, the second one in the franchise. I don't think anyone's heard of it beside me and my dad. It was his game, mm-hmm. And basically it plays out the events of the movie. You take the colonial marines into the reactor room, things go to hell. You have to fight your way out. Then it skips, kind of has a gap of a time break between that. You have to heal up your marines if any of them are wounded, and then you get to the operations room and you've got to fight your way out of that, fight through the vents, and get to the exit. And the same kind of the main fight scenes from the movie. It doesn't have the fight between Ripley and the Queen Alien in the core game, but the expansion pack adds that in.
Right. Okay.
And that was one of the games I was playing at the time. The other game I was playing at the time was Necromunda.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do from playing these two games was thinking, what about Necromunda in space with aliens? That was basically the concept. So you had these salvage gangs going out into space, a little bit like I might have been playing Space Hulk as well at the time. Can't remember. Going out into space and exploring these derelicts and coming into fights against kind of various aliens. And then, you would, if you survived, you would get payment for all the stuff you salvaged and XP for all the aliens you overcome, and you can buy more gear and level up your skills and so on.
And so, how far did you get with these designs then? I mean, are these actual things or are these still stuff?
Well, that one never got played. I'm sad to say.
Oh.
I mean, I've actually kind of lost it for years. I think I lost it about 2 years after I started it, and I actually managed to find it again about a year ago. Mm-hmm. I dug it out. I didn't. All of the digital files are gone. I just have the printouts I have. Because I had modular map tiles, and I had lost those files, but I had the scans. So I just scanned everything back in to start working from that point, basically.
So have you got other games that you've put together? Are you kind of still doing the kind of a lot of the hybrid stuff, or?
No, that was my. I guess that was my only kind of real hybrid game that was like that. I've got another, 8 or 9 prototypes that are playable at the moment. That I've been playing around with from various inspirations. I've got one is a kickboxer game where it's a 2-player game. It's split into basically 2 rounds. One round where you're training your fighter up to fight, and then the second round of play you're fighting your opponent head to head. Mm-hmm. That was quite interesting, and I was inspired to that because I used to do Thai kickboxing for many years myself.
All right.
And it's like, when I learn about something in the real world, I think about a game to make from it. The other one was one of my other games is called Arachnida, and that's because I happened to be reading a book on spiders because I saw it in the library and thought, let's find out about spiders, and then I made a game based on it.
I take it you're not afraid of spiders then?
I'm not overly fond of touching them because
I don't think you're being a minority for that. I think if you stood up,
they go because it kind of bugs me that they keep going all over the place. But that applies not just to spiders; that's all insects as well as arachnids. I'm not afraid of them beyond that point, I guess. I don't freak out when I look at pictures of them or anything like that, or look at movies of them. So it's nothing more than just I don't like crawly things on me.
Again, I don't think that's an unusual stance to take on things. What kind of spider facts have you learned, Joseph? Can you hit us up?
Oh.
Can you hit us up with the Joseph 8-minute spider facts? Can you hit us up with 3 facts that you would really like to know about spiders? Or you could do 10, and then we could do that thing where we say, and number 7 will make you cry. But
I don't know if I can do 10 from memory.
That's fine.
Just a couple. I might be able to do 3.
Three's fine. Three's good.
So there's one interesting species called the flick-flack spider.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know if it's called the flick-flack spider or if that's the way it's described. I mean, presumably it has a proper scientific name of some sort. Who knows? But basically, it kind of throws itself in a kind of cartwheel to move across open ground really, really terrifyingly quickly. That was pretty much, yeah. That was very interesting.
Awesome.
There's.
You realise there's going to be somebody thinking about that. What countries do you find that in?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, if you want, I can just look it up. And
I've heard that what they do is the preferred place to go is in the back seat of cars. So if you're listening in the car just now, whatever you do, don't look behind you. Especially at the stop sign. You turn round, there's a little cartwheeling spider going back and forward.
Another one of the other interesting ones was, I can't remember if I remember what it's called correctly, but what they would do is when their young come out of their egg sacs, they will kind of dangle like very, very fine gossamer threads, which they'll kind of let out, and then they can use that to float through the air, because they're so tiny and so light that the wind catching on that little thread of gossamer is enough to lift them away. And that's how they distribute from when they're born, so they don't just all spread out from one place and devour everything that's nearby. They spread out over a wide area, and so they can kind of get more access to food because they're not competing as much over the local area.
That's pretty cool. So remember that they're really light, but the gossamer thread is quite sticky, so it could land in your hair when you're outside, and you wouldn't even realise that you've got piles of spiders in your hair.
That's true. You wouldn't. The funniest thing about this, I don't know if it was this species or not, but there are definitely some horrifying pictures of, well, horrifying if you're in the area, horrifying pictures of entire kind of rows of trees just coated in webs.
Sweet.
Like 50, 100 meters of 50, 100 meters of wood of trees, like tree line, just coated in webs.
And what's the third? What's the third? Because this is
the third one. The third one. Okay.
By the second.
The third one. What's it called? I can't remember what it's called, but it would use, rather than spinning a web, this species of spider would dangle a single bit of web with a big drop of the sticky substance they use attached to it. And then when an insect comes by, and they can do this on creatures as big as moths, they'll flick the glob of glue at the end of their thread at the insect and whip it out of the air.
That sounds amazing. And did you say
it's incredible to watch?
And they hang about in showers, Joseph. Yeah?
I haven't had any reports of them hanging about in showers, but I don't see why not.
To say it's a favourite haunt in them. So now that folk are running about going, I'm cancelling my subscription on this podcast. Came here for cardboard.
Yep.
I've had an awful day, and then I've been like, I can't have a shower, I can't go in my car, and I can't go out in my garden without having to come in and have a shower, thinking I'm covered in spiders. And then realise that in my shower there's a big spider. And then I'm going to get extra strength shampoo, so I get into my car, and then I look in my rear view mirror, and there's a spider cartwheeling back and forward across my back seat. Or the parcel shelf. Or maybe there could be 2 or 3, and they could be doing a routine. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so my game of Arachnids has lots of kind of different features. Like those are actually 3 of the features that all spiders in the game can have.
Awesome.
But it's actually got quite a lot of kind of real world information. Like it doesn't hold you to the real world breeds of spider, but it has kind of whatever combination you like or you get dealt of kind of the traits that are from real world spiders.
And do you think that game's going to do well on Kickstarter?
I have no idea on how that one's going to work. I do intend to avoid going kind of horrifying with the artwork. Currently it's all very prototype using kind of clip art and stuff like that. But when I do go to getting proper artwork, I expect I'm going to try to keep it from being too intense, because that's going to put everyone off.
I would just,
and when it comes down to it,
I would maybe have instruction booklet, and when you open pages of the instruction booklet, it's just a little
pop-up spider.
Pop-up spider's got a bit learned of it.
No, I want to. What I want to do with that is kind of keep the artwork relatively non-threatening, because when it comes down to it, a lot of people are scared of spiders because they don't understand anything about them. And if they're playing a game where the spider artwork isn't too threatening, and they can actually learn a lot about what spiders are really like, and where the actual dangerous breeds are, Australia, basically. There were a few other countries, but Australia's got a lot of them.
No, exactly. But that's that whole, was it the Peppa Pig thing getting banned again? Because, did you hear about that?
No, I don't know.
Peppa Pig, they've got an episode where Peppa and George find a spider, and they say, like, and I think one of them's really, really scared and starts crying, and then Daddy Pig comes in and goes, "It's okay, they're fine," kind of thing. And they had to ban that from Australia in that particular episode, because obviously little, small, tiny spiders in Australia ain't necessarily like nice things. So they had to actually ban that kind of episode. Let's talk about the game.
Okay.
35 minutes in. It's not...
Sure. Okay.
Nightlancer. Okay.
Yeah.
You're sitting about reading your spiders, trying to get your webs out your hair, thinking about orcs in space and stuff like that. Where did the idea come around for Nightlancer? Where did you kind of first kind of go, "Ooh, this could work"?
The original idea for Nightlancer, at the very beginning, it was always kind of from playing a lot of cyberpunk-themed role-playing games, like the cyberpunk role-playing game and the Shadowrun game, Space Time, Cyberspace. I think there was another one I can't remember the name of right now, but there's quite a few actual cyberpunk-themed role-playing games out there. Is a lot of the problem with role-playing games is that unless you've got a really solid group, it's probably going to fizzle out before long. Like a lot of people I find are unlikely to have campaigns that last more than, say, 6 months or a year. Like my last gaming group, I was fortunate to meet people that I could actually have a campaign with have a game group with for 3 years. We never actually managed to finish any campaigns, even in that period, because we kept kind of switching about between games. We got to level 19 in a D&D game. That's the closest we got to the end of a campaign. So yeah, that was one of the issues, was you never really get to finish a role-playing game. So that was kind of part of it, was I wanted to take the role-playing game experience and bring it into a single game session. So you can go through the really important stuff. You know, which missions do you take on? Do you replace your body with machinery? Do you take a stealthy approach, or do you just blow everything up? And bring all that into one session. And one of the things I could do with the game that you can't do in a role-playing game is I've also added in, do you shoot your friends in the back? Because in a role-playing game campaign, that doesn't work very well. You know, that makes a very chaotic environment, and no one can really try to build towards anything. But in a single game session like Nightlancer, you can stab each other in the back all you want. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk theme was because I've been a fan of the cyberpunk genre since I don't know, 12, I think, when I played 2020 the first time. And I played Shadowrun shortly after that. I also played DMZ, Downtown Militarized Zone, which is a board game based on Shadowrun.
Oh, right.
Which I think is one of those little known ones.
Okay. How do you play it? I mean, because you've got in here that says like it plays over 2 hours, which is that's kind of shortish. That's a Friday evening at the club potentially type of game. That's kind of getting set up and kind of getting run in. I mean, is it 120 minutes to play, or is it 120 minutes per player? I mean, am I staring down the barrel of the 8-hour gun here, Joseph? Or
No. Okay, so 2 hours is the expected gameplay length for a 4-player game when the players know the game. I mean, right. The numbers designers put on the side of the box are for people who know the game. It's always like that. I think everyone knows that. I would expect it to take 3 hours for complete beginner gamers.
Yeah, okay.
But I've got a lot of feedback, actually, that though has got quite a sharp learning curve to begin with, you'll actually, once you get to grips with it, once you learn the rules, it actually starts to flow very smoothly because kind of all the rules do fit together. I mean, one of the bits of feedback, I'm not trying to kind of blow my own horn here, but is that once you kind of read the rules and kind of fit it all together, it actually makes a lot of sense. They're all very logically laid out, very logically fit together.
Okay.
So once you know them, it actually flows quite nicely once you get over that kind of the first round learning curve.
Right, okay. How do you play? What happens in a round? I'm sitting there with my 3 buddies and we're just going, let's get it on, we know the rules, how do we play?
Yeah. Okay, so the game round is split into 4 main phases. You've got the prep phase, where you kind of get to recover a little bit, you get some of your health and resolve back, which are resources you kind of spend when you do difficult or risky things. You get some money, you get kind of a gradual, very slow income, and you get to draw some more contacts to your hand, which are kind of your connections you're making in the underworld, your contact network, people you can kind of get favours from.
Okay.
After you've done that, which is the downtime step, you get the event step, where you flip over the next round card, and this sets you up for the round. So you get a new set of black market cards drawn. The number depends on the number of players. If there are 4 players, you get 10 cards out. If there are 3, you get 8. If there are 2, you get 6 cards out. You get a new set of mission cards out, and that depends on the round card, because the distribution of mission cards is... Firstly, the amount can change. It can be between 3 and 4 mission cards, and the distribution between low-profile and high-profile missions varies throughout the game. So in the early rounds, the first half of the game, there'll generally be more low-profile missions, which are easier, but they pay less. And then the later half of the game, you'll get more high-profile missions, which, more expensive, which pay more, but are pretty tough.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of the time you wouldn't ever expect to pass a high-profile mission in the first couple of rounds, unless you get one of the easier high-profile missions. So once you've drawn cards, then you have to face the event on the round card. And that's where the game tries to trip you up. Something happens in the underworld dystopia. Some gangers come and stalk the streets looking for people to harass, or toxic smog descends on people, and you need to kind of understand what's happening in time and protect yourself against it and know how to do that without getting hurt. Or the police come around and knock on your door if you've been causing trouble. So when that comes up, you'll have to, if it applies to you, because the police only come and knock down your door if you've accrued enough heat, which is how much the authorities are aware of you and how much trouble you're getting into. So those events only trigger if you've got heat. You can avoid the police by not generating any heat. The other events typically will always apply to you. So if it's a gang out harassing people, you've got to either stare them down and convince them you're not worth the trouble, or just avoid them entirely. If you fail to do that, they're going to come and they're going to either take some money off of you, or they're going to beat you up if you don't want to give them any money.
Okay.
So the police, if you come up against them, you're going to get to a fight, and that's often going to be pretty tough, because when you're on the streets, you're not carrying around your big obvious gear, because you can't walk down the street carrying an assault rifle and wearing a flak vest. It's too obvious. Gangers will take it as an invitation to rob you. That's what happens when you walk down the street with obvious hardware. Gangs just rob you.
Well,
it's just not.
That's Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have to touch on this a bit, Joseph. Why Birmingham? You don't particularly sound like you're from Birmingham.
No, I'm not. I'm from Oxford myself. I've been to Birmingham a few times. Have a bit of a sense for the city. I've been to the UK Games Expo a couple of times. I've also been around Birmingham a little bit. I went when I recorded the film for the Kickstarter. The company I did it with, Hill Peak Productions, we recorded at a studio in Birmingham, and that gave me a bit more of the less NEC side of Birmingham, to put it politely. Okay, so the reason Birmingham. Okay, in the setting I have.
Please, come on.
In the setting, I have plans for London that aren't compatible with the Nightlancer world. Basically, it's completely kind of rebuilt and regulated, and nothing obviously criminal could happen there because it's all so tightly controlled.
Yeah.
So you couldn't actually live the Nightlancer life there.
Yeah.
Birmingham, because it's kind of one of the other bigger cities in the country, and I thought it was suitable, shall we say.
Did you have a list of other cities? I mean, did you go Coventry?
I think I did look at some others, but I don't think Coventry ever got on the list.
What did get on? This is fascinating to me because it's just what else got on the list? People, we demand to know, Joseph.
Now I'm going to have to be trawling up vague, distant memories because it was about, I think, 3 years ago when I made this decision, and I can't actually remember. Beside the London thing, what my choice, what the choices were, why I made that
That's
choice.
fantastic. I just love it. I love it.
I could probably find out if I went through all my old notes
it's okay.
on world building, but
no, it's okay. At some point, obviously, you'll need to, because when there's funds and everything like that, you're going to get like some professional podcast interviewers asking you these questions. You're going to need to know these answers. You aren't going to get off as easy as this. I'm just letting you know.
Right. I was talking about the game round, wasn't I? Yeah. So that was the event. After the event, that's if you want to face the event, you can always avoid the event by laying low, but that means you lose out on the next step of the round.
Okay.
So you face the event and take the consequences. You might lose some health, you might lose some money, but you'll have the option of taking a mission. If you lay low, you avoid the event. You're safe because you're hiding. You also get to recover, you get to reduce your heat, get all your health and resolve back, so it's kind of the big take a round off doing a mission and get a big recovery back option. But if you do that, you don't get to take a mission, which is the next step. The mission step is when players who aren't laying low get to take their Nightlancer token, which is one with the Nightlancer's face on it, and put it on the mission that they want to do. So you'll do this in turn order, and if someone gets to a mission you want before you do, because you're later in the turn, you get 3 options. You can either ask for their permission to join their crew and team up with them, and then you can combine your skills, work together on the mission, and then split the money at the end. If you don't want to team up with them, or they don't want you to team up with them, then your next option is to compete with them head to head and start a second crew. And that's when things get very kind of cutthroat in Nightlancer. So that's the most, the head-to-head kind of mission system. You kind of race to the end of the mission through the stages of the mission, and whoever's in the lead at the end of the mission gets to lay an ambush for the other player, or players if they've got more in their crew.
Wow.
And so whoever gets to the target first gets to choose the terms of the combat, which is almost always going to be in their favour. It's only when you've got a really strong combat character following you that there's ever any chance that you're not going to have... If you've got a very strong character following you, that the lead character isn't going to have good odds on their side. Yeah. It's always risky. So it's more about getting into the lead than kind of preparing for the fight. Although you can prepare for the fight and actually just try to cover all your bases. So if it does come to that, you can take them, or at least have a good shot.
Okay. So when you're first playing it, probably everybody will want to kind of play together. But as you get more confident with how the game works, then there's that temptation to actually kind of stab each other in the back, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, not at all. Players go for each other first time all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about a third of the games I've played, like a third of the games I've demoed, players have gone for the throat on the first round, going straight for it. It's very interesting. I wasn't actually expecting that when I first started doing public demos.
It just goes to show how, it just goes to show.
Yeah, it really comes down to the players. Some players want to play it safe, they want to avoid conflict. Some players just want to kill each other.
How was it, with you, I take it you developed the game Nightlancer mostly by yourself then?
I've done all the development work myself. I've had some people that I've kind of gone to and talked to about the game and got some advice from them. And of course I've got a huge range of playtesters.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
I can't take all the credit for the game because I wouldn't have got this far without all the playtesters I've had.
Yeah. How easy is it to get kind of playtesters for a game that isn't there, that doesn't have the art, which could potentially just be a deck of cards with some writing on it? Did you have to make the game Nightlancer presentable before you started people kind of playtesting it, or were you just kind of going out there and saying, right, okay, let's get the basics down, let's see if people kind of enjoy it first of all?
Fortunately, I had some friends who were willing to playtest for me while it was still very early stages.
Right.
But I did transition to some slightly better graphics and some proper printed cards a couple of years ago, and that was, I think, that was when I started demoing it, and I think I wouldn't have got much success demoing it if I was using my old kind of handmade components, because they didn't look good. And even though I was still using my own graphics, I'm not a graphic designer, they aren't very good. The prototype graphics on that iteration, where I did some proper card printing, I think with the Game Crafter, was still a lot better looking than the original build with very, very bad graphics. I had also started getting some of the illustrations done at that point when I switched to a proper printed game. I had the 8 Nightlancer illustrations done by my illustrator, Mandolis Frangidis. He's a Greek artist. And
where did you find them? Your artist?
Board Game Geek.
Oh,
so I put the ad out on Board Game Geek,
cool.
And I think he impressed me. I mean, he's got good art, and he was enthusiastic for the project from day one. That was kind of really important. You know, an artist who kind of just says they'll do it, but doesn't actually seem to care. Like, yeah, even if they got good technical skill, if their heart isn't in the project, then I'm not going to be as confident in their commitment.
Okay, here's a maybe a strange take on things. When you're getting the artwork getting sent to you, did it give you ideas for different things to do with the game? Did it actually influence the design process itself with some of the pieces that were getting produced?
Not an awful lot, no. I think there were, as I got more of the illustrations done, I was thinking more of extra places in the game where I could include illustrations, where it would actually be helpful for the gameplay. Like, originally, the Contact deck, I mentioned it earlier, your Contact Network.
Yeah.
The Contact deck never had illustrations on it, and I never had illustrations in mind for it.
Yeah.
But once I was working with Manolis and getting the illustrations done, it actually struck me as kind of really valuable to have the character illustrations on the Contact cards. Because in the Contact deck, there are 15 unique Contact cards, and there are duplicates of each of them.
Yeah.
But you can kind of miss that. If you just got the name of the card to go by, you could actually miss that it's the same Contact if you get 2 of the same card.
Yeah.
But having the illustration there really brings that together, and it actually helps make some of the other cards make sense. Because one of the things you can do in Nightlancer is you can actually kind of burn one of your contacts.
All right. Okay.
And you sacrifice some of your ideals for doing this, but you get some money basically. You sell out one of your contacts, you get a big chunk of money, and you sacrifice your ideals. And the help of the illustration there is, once you've burned a contact, you have to keep the card in your hand, because you have to have at least one card for that contact in your hand when you do it. And you keep that card for the contact you've burned beneath the opportunity card that allows you to burn the contact. And if you ever have one of those contact cards again, you have to discard it straight away. You've burned their contact, they are not talking to you anymore.
Okay.
And having the illustrations on the card really helps bring that together. So you're going to have this kind of visual representation of the character, and if you see that character again, you've just got to discard that card. You've ruined your the situation with them. They're never going to talk to you again. It also means that it actually affects the distribution of the card deck, because there's one less of those cards in the game, because that contact has been burned and is kind of dealing with that. So even the other players are going to have less access to that contact from then on.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like... did you ever have any kind of balancing issues when you're putting the game together, or was that something you're constantly kind of working on through the kind of the playtesting and things like that?
There were some major balancing issues early on. So one, I don't know if it's really quite so much a balancing issue as more of a kind of player interaction issue. There used to be some different game mechanics for combats. There was an entire mini game for combats in the game, where you would kind of pause what you're doing, get out the combat card deck, and both the player who's facing the combat and one of the other players who would take the role of the enemy in that combat would have combat cards, and you'll take it in turns playing cards with different effects on, like, headshot or explosive barrels or something like that, and that would give you different effects depending on which card you played, and you would fight until either the player or their opponent ran out of health. But in a 3 or 4 player game, that was a big problem, because it meant that the 3rd and 4th player would just do nothing for that period.
Okay.
So that had to go. That was a problem once I moved beyond 2-player playtests.
Yeah.
And I think in hindsight, even in 2-player playtests, it's just an extra level of complexity to the game that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, you're just adding in kind of mechanics and functionality for almost like the sake of having it. maybe being slightly different
Kind of,
as well.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I cut that out entirely. So now all of the challenges work in the same basic way, where you test your ability and the cards you play against the difficulty. The only difference now for combat challenges is that when you fail a combat challenge, you lose health as well as any other penalties. Whereas normal challenges and non-combat ones, you've still got some penalty for failing a challenge, but you don't have the additional health penalty.
Okay.
So combat challenges are still high stakes, but not excessively complicated. The other balancing issue, the main kind of game-ruining balancing issue, was getting the balance right between the difficulty of the mission cards, the availability of the black market cards, the Nightlancer starting ability levels, the abilities for the contacts to help you out, and just getting that right so that you don't get stuck the moment you start a game incapable of doing any missions.
Yeah.
But it's also tough enough that you get a challenge.
Yeah.
Like I had one playtest. I think we quit on round 2 out of 8 rounds because the missions were just too hard. We couldn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
So the game became, lay low every round and do what you can with the other resources you've got.
Yeah.
Because missions were out of reach.
Yeah. I think I've seen games that have kind of gone through that and actually suffered from that because there's no way for the player to get back from being in a losing position. I think the sign of a decent game is, no matter kind of what the situation is, you should be able to either win through in some way, shape or form, or at least be able to prepare enough to come back in the next round. And I've seen games where you're like, well, I can't. There's nothing much I can do because I just don't have the kind of the resources to kind of take something on. I've seen it strangely enough more in kind of one-on-one card games when you get when somebody kind of just manages to draw the magic hand and there's just absolutely nothing you can do about it. You're just sitting there going, well, I might as well just go make myself a cup of tea for all the good that's gonna kind of do me.
And I'll admit that was actually, for a while, that was one of the problems in Nightlancer too. I mean, there was a point where the balance was such that if you messed up a mission, you were probably going to struggle to catch up with the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something I fixed about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of, I fudged the way the difficulty, the missions pay off. I made the lay low thing more power. I think that was actually when I added the lay low thing, because that meant when you can't do a mission, at least you get a big kind of recovery for doing that, for passing on a mission.
Yeah.
So it makes it really worth it. When you mess up for a round, you fail a mission, you're wrecked, you're out of health, possibly out of resolve, you can get a very quick recovery, get all of it back right away, get a little bonus, no heat and no event to deal with, and next round you can definitely get back into the action.
Okay. So how's the winner of the game decided? I mean, how do you...
The winner of the game is basically prospects, which is victory points. So you can accrue these throughout the game. You can take on some missions will actually give you prospects outright.
Mm-hmm.
You can also buy prospects every round during the streak phase, but the exchange rate on that isn't great. Normally you're better off trying one of the alternative routes to get them. And the main other route you can get prospects during the game is the opportunity cards. This gives you access to things like extra training, kind of investments, charitable acts that you can use to boost your ideals, extra kind of buddies, and you can kind of build up your network of friends as a way of boosting your ideals. And so a lot of these cards will give you prospects, like the pure investment cards, and most of the skill cards give you prospects outright, because they improve. What prospects are is it's your prospects outside of the underworld life. It's your capacity to leave the underworld in the crumbling dystopia as it all comes collapsing down, and kind of build yourself a life outside, do something better. So having things like big investments in the outside world, having kind of really good skills that you can kind of put to use in less, criminal underworld ways, is how you build yourself up for that.
Okay.
And then finally, during the end game, you get one last opportunity to buy one last chance to buy any opportunity cards. Your ideals are worth a prospect each, so that's it gives you a lot of swing in the last round to get a lot of prospects. So the scoreboard isn't. It's a fairly good indicator of how things are going, but until the final scoring, you really can't tell how it's going to go. Unless there's like a 15-point gap between two players, you can't be 100% sure which of them is going to win just looking at the scoreboard.
All right. Okay.
So you can buy it for opportunities, get any of those you couldn't get during the game because you were doing other actions, and you also get a bonus point for having the highest score in each ability, each of the 6 main abilities. So there's a few other things you can get points for in the end game as well.
Okay. What's it been like, kind of launching the game on Kickstarter, amongst all the noise that is always Kickstarter? I mean, getting the kind of the marketing together. I mean, you've got the design down pat. What was it like, kind of putting a different hat on and putting the kind of the marketing on in order to get the kind of the word out, I guess.
Well, that was pretty hard work for me. It's not. I mean, I think this is actually my main kind of lacking area is the marketing side. I'm not so good at that, and I know that that's probably holding back my campaign a little bit. That I'm not kind of good at getting out there and selling myself to people and all that stuff. So that's been quite hard work, kind of getting all the places to get the word out and kind of how to get the word out in the most effective way to kind of communicate the game to backers, or prospective backers, the best. So yeah, that's been a lot of work, kind of a lot of catch up, and kind of making it all work. And of course, reaching out to people like yourself and trying to.
Yeah, I mean, you sent us a pretty damn fine email to ask, which is why you got on the show. I mean, that's why
Right.
That's why we always say to people, if you're interested in coming and having a chat, then drop us a line and we'll see about fitting you in, kind of thing. And that's why we kind of, that's why we've kind of ended up talking tonight about eventually about your game, which is always a good thing. For people who have kind of listened along, and I mean, how'd you get in? How'd you get in the door? How much is Nightlancer going to cost you?
So yeah, to get the core game, the pledge level is £45. That includes free shipping to anywhere in the UK and US.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a bunch more pledge levels. You've got the limited edition version of the game, which has some bonus Nightlancer characters, which are actually the 2 characters that kind of talk you through the rulebook.
Right.
You get some extra artwork on the game box. You get an art book in the box as well, which will kind of bring together all of that. Like, there's a lot of artwork in Nightlancer. There's going to be 15 contact illustrations, 10 Nightlancer illustrations, including the 2 bonus characters. You got, I think, 45 different black market card illustrations in there as well, plus some extra illustrations like on the cover and used for marketing and so on. So you'll get all of that and comments from the artists in the art book. Going beyond that, there are the kind of get included in the game pledge levels.
Yeah.
So you can become one of the contacts in the game. There are 15 different contact cards. 14 of them are left. One of them has already got an illustration on it. And that costs £120, which gives you the limited edition game plus becoming one of the contacts.
That's pretty cool.
Then next up Sorry?
That's pretty cool.
Cool. And the illustrator Manolis has done this for a bunch of other successful games before. Like, he's very experienced in taking kind of pictures from backers and turning them into character illustrations in the game.
All right. Okay.
So I'm very confident he'll be able to do a good job of that. So the next level up from the contact pledge is the antagonist pledge, where you become one of the enemies of the Nightlancers, and these appear on the mission cards. So you'll get like one of the corporate security goons in his armor and gear, or you'll get one of the peace officers, or one of the gang members, and you can become one of those illustrations and get included in the artwork for that. And that's £150 for that. And the top end pledge, which is more like if you really just want Nightlancer to succeed and you really can throw this much money at it sort of pledge.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, I don't seriously expect anyone to back this, although one person already has, which is the £1,000 pledge to become an entire extra Nightlancer. So you actually add to the components of the game if you pledge at this level, which is why it costs so much.
Yes.
So not only do you get to become part of the illustration for the new Nightlancer card,
right.
You also get a choice of illustrate. There was 6 Nightlancer concepts that I can bring into the game without, breaking the time frame, basically. So you can become one of those 6, and you'll get your own special edition of the limited edition copy of the game, of course, shipped to you anywhere in the world with no extra charge because it's already £1,000. So, And also, I'm offering a kind of a day to meet with me, kind of play Nightlancer or any of my other games you want to play, or talk to me like this and kind of grill me on the Nightlancer world and anything about it. I should be charging you for this if I'm going to charge that sort of rate, shouldn't I? No, that's just I kind of, if someone's going to back me on that level, I'm going to give them a date basically. If they want to make use of it and learn about the Nightlancer world or my other games or anything else, I'm happy to just give them that day.
Kind of
as thanks for that.
Yeah, kind of, help paint some miniatures.
You know what? That's actually an option. If someone wants me to paint their miniatures, I wouldn't mind doing that.
An option. And where can we find you on the interweb nets, sir?
Pretty much any social media site. The company website Adversity Games is adversitygames.com.
Clever.
But yeah, you can find me on Facebook under Adversity Games or Nightlancer. There's a page for both. I'm on Twitter, Adversity Games, and it's all one word. No weird characters or anything in there. And on Instagram, same again. Amazingly, the string Adversity Games is available on all these sites. It was a miracle.
Just a sign of good research. That's all, Joseph. Just a sign of really good research into your brand and your merchandising. There's nothing much better to be said than that. If you want to find us on the interweb nets, and I don't know why I'm saying it slowly in a staccato voice, but you can find us on Twitter at We're Not Wizards, and Facebook at We're Not Wizards, and Instagram at We're Not Wizards, and we are also on. We've got a blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. We've got a couple of bits of writing on there, and as we've started to say, unless you start to read it, we're going to put more stuff on there, because we love you. And you can find us on places like YouTube, which is We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. You can find us on all the podcast catchers like Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Podknife and Podbean and all these wonderful places. We have had a few reviews on the Apple Podcasts, so thank you very much to everybody who has given us a rating or a review. If you want to give us a rating or a review, then remember, don't give us 10 stars, because it makes us big-headed. And don't give us one, because I'm an ugly crier. Give us something in the middle, like 5, because it's average. We're a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather amazing, the rather got a decent collection of miniatures from Adversity Games. It's Joseph Norris. Thank you very much for coming on.
All right, thank you. And we got through the first phase of the game.
We could always do some more. You could come back.
If I could probably try to wrap up the rest of the game in a minute and see how that goes. Okay, do it. So, Streets phase. You get after you've claimed a mission, you go into the Street phase. Everyone gets 4 actions. They take it in turns, placing their tokens on the game board. So you can do things like buy from the black market, take any other contact, add it to your hand, exploit one of the opportunities in your hand, hustle on the slums to make some more money, or you can buy it, take a loan from the loan shark. You do all that. There's some other actions as well, but those are the main ones. Once you've finished the Street phase, once you've all taken 4 actions each, you go into the Mission phase. In the Mission phase, you take it in turns, taking on the mission you claimed. You pay your loadout, and you take the missions on your go. You do the 3 stages of the mission in order. On each stage, you choose one of 2 routes on the mission to suit your Nightlancer's abilities. If you pass, you move on to the next stage. If you fail, you face a penalty, but you can still move on to the next stage if you survive. Once you've passed all 3 stages, you get paid at the end, and that's the end of the mission phase. When everyone's done that, end phase. Finally, turn order is adjusted to match the heat order, so whoever has the most heat goes last, whoever has the least heat goes first. Finally, you discard down to 6 cards if you've got more than 6 in your hand.
That doesn't sound as interesting as the first phase.
I think I've got everything.
I think you peaked at the first bit. Just saying. I've just said if people listen to the first bit, they're going back. If they listen to the second bit, they might not.
I forgot I can take another 15 minutes going through all of that at normal talking speed.
That's
rather than...
the wicked. That's fine. Oh dear. You'll be glad you come on.
Right. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
It always has. There's only 2 more things to do.
Oh yeah.
First thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Joseph?
No, we're not. Not in Nightlancer. There is no magical dragons in Nightlancer.
Yes. Back this game. Back this game with all the money that you have.
Please.
This is the game that you've been waiting to back. Back this game with all of your heart and your love and your soul. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's goodbye to the completely interrupted the second and third phase of his game, Mr. Joseph Norris from Adversity. Say goodbye, Mr. Joseph Norris. Don't hate me.
All right, goodbye.
That's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and maybe pay attention to what your guest is saying so you don't miss out on the second, third phase of his game that he's trying to explain and he's trying to get out there and get it kickstarted and funded. But until the next time, goodbye. Say goodbye, Joseph.
Goodbye.
I'm sorry, Joseph.